guys, welcome back to the Everyday Man review channel. It's been a while. I've been real busy, as you can see, over the past year or so. I've actually gotten married. We planned got engaged, was planning the wedding, got married. We got a 1950 Chevy pickup truck and drove it around for a while, and then I blew the motor up in it. Spun 3 rod bearings. So I'm going to start a new video series today that's going to go through rebuilding an inline 6-cylinder engine. This is a Chevrolet 235, a 1956 motor out of a car, and it's going in my 1950 Chevy pickup. So once you've got your block cleaned up and everything, where you're satisfactory with it, you know, the next step in the engine building process is starting to check all your clearances. You know, you can't ever trust anybody anymore, at least I don't. So we need to double check all of our clearances, even though we just got it back from the machine shop, and it's really not that hard. So we got this bore gauge here. You just get it down there nice and square. And you can check for outer roundness with this particular one real easy, because you got an indicator here, and you can just spin this thing around. You know, and your manual should have you know, specifications for out of roundness and that sort of thing. But right now, just checking the bore about halfway down. You lock it down, and we're just going to come over here to our micrometer. And I don't claim to be a great machinist or engine builder. This is just how I'm doing it and documenting the process, and hopefully someone can learn from it. But if you have any comments or things we could do better, please leave it below. So we measure your bore, okay, and we're going to take, this is 3 inches, 621 thousandths. So, all right. So once we got our measurement for the bore, we write it down. So we've got a computer with an Excel spreadsheet where I went in and I laid out all 6 cylinders, the bores and pistons, and it auto calculates clearances for pistons and rods and everything. So we enter that number in the spreadsheet, and then you come over and you need to check perpendicular to your wrist pin, okay? And you just take your measurement and you put it in a spreadsheet and calculate your clearance. So, you know, on this particular engine, I actually went through off camera and done this already, and we're measuring about 7 to 10 thousandths clearance. I think that's plenty good. And once you get it all laid out, you may have to take, you know, this piston and put it with a different bore, depending how consistent the machine shop was. So you see, I've got a 5 here. So we went through and we've labeled all the pistons to their cylinders, so we can put these back in the box and wrap them up for later use, because this part of the build is done. So we just got our bore to piston checked, and that's good. The next step that I'm going to do here is to check our ring end gap. Okay, these are Grant rings. They came in a real nice package showing you your top compression ring, your mid compression ring, and this has got a 3-piece oil ring, and it even tells you the order to install them. So it's pretty nice. And you can see these rings are coated, and your compression rings always have top on them, which goes towards the head of the engine. Okay. So before you do this, we're going to start with number 1 cylinder here. I'm going to take just a little bit of oil, put it on my hand, and run around here in this bowl. We don't want to scratch this thing up. And you know, that's the worst thing you can do to a motor is start it up dry and do all these checks dry. You definitely won't have oil on it. So we're going to take our ring here and just kind of compress it by hand and get it started, okay? Now, the best way I found to do this part here is to take a piston that we were just using and just set it in the bore, and it just helps square that ring up, okay? Run it down there flush with where your rings go, and take it back out. So now you got a ring in there that's square. So now it helps to get a flashlight, and you know, so a good rule of thumb is 4 thousandths end gap per inch of cylinder bore. Okay, so that means roughly on this we need about 12 thousandths of end gap. So you can see there, the end gap, the split in the ring is not square to the bore. It's tighter at the outside than it is at the inside, and I don't think that's a good thing. So let's go ahead and check this clearance and see what we got. Alright, so we're coming in here to check this clearance, and right there we got, pretty much goes all the way in, and that's 7 thousandths. And that's too tight, guys. We need at least 12 thousandths, and we can go up to 8 here. See, but I don't think that was fitting 100% where we needed to be. So I got to get my flashlight here so I can see. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera or not. 8 thousandths is good, barely. Let's see if we can bump up to 10. Alright, so 10 thousandths. See right there, it's not going all the way in. About halfway through the ring, it's 10 thousandths. And I think we're going to have to square these rings up on a ring grinding machine. Alright, so you just saw us measure the one ring on camera. We went through and measured the rest of them, and they definitely are too tight. So we're going to have to gap them, which I used to do when I was racing quarter midgets back in the day. But unfortunately, I don't have a ring gapping machine. Essentially, it's just a flat plate with a little wheel you turn by hand to open up that gap on the rings. Don't have one. Maybe you can do it with a file. I don't really know. So I might have to do a little research on that and open that up. But right now, just trying to get some of this surface rust off this crank, and then we can check these clearances. Now, this motor, like I said, the 1956 235. I've bored it 60 over, and the crank, like I said, we spun 2 or 3 rod bearings, and it was already turned twice. It was already 20 under, and so I went ahead and they welded it up on the rods, and we got back to 10 under, so that's pretty good. I hate to have, you know, this particular truck I'm wanting to keep kind of stock and generic and kind of vintage, hot rod of the day, you know. So I'm going to put some multiple carburetors on it, and you know, probably dual exhaust, and going to put a little cam in it, and it's going to be a hot little motor when we get done here, hopefully. So when I get this cleaned up, we'll get back to checking them clearances. Okay, once we got this crank cleaned up, the next thing we need to do is measure our journals. Okay, now you can use plastic gauge to where you put all your bearings in your motor, and then you put the crank in there, and you have this little strip of plastic gauge, and you put on your journal, and then you torque everything down, and you hold a piece of paper up, and it'll tell you your clearances. And that's a good way to do it. I just don't have any here, and I've got Mike's, so that's what we're going to use. So this 235 has got a kind of a long squirrely crank. It's got 4 main journals. It's got one at the back, and it's got 2 intermediates here and here, and then it has one up here at the front. So four main journals. And this, like, this is a 56. Pretty sure they were very similar. This has got insert bearings, not your Babbitt style. So 53 to 62, I believe, had insert bearings. So it's fairly modern. But if you look at the GMC motors of the day, back in the 50s and even back in the 30s, they had a much better oiling system and a much better crank. But this is a Chevy, and let's see here what they measure. We just need to measure these and write them down on our spreadsheet. And once we do that, we can put the main bearings in the motor and use inside micrometers and do the same thing, and we'll have our clearances. Holy shit. Oh, these are pretty snug here, boy. And I've got a 12-point socket here. It'd probably be best to have a 6-point socket. Then we'll run these out here and put the main bearings in. Just run these out, and there's only one way these go on. It's the correct way. I don't know if it's mistake proofed or not, so just want to be careful and make sure we don't mix these up. Of course, we got the Big Daddy rear main back here. Sometimes these just need to be smacked a little bit with the rubber hammer because they got dowels in there. So it's on film. Alright, so we got sealed power, main bearings here. And these go in pretty much just like rod bearings. You just want to make sure your oil holes line up. And you have this little notch here. This goes right in here. So I get them started about the same height here and just press them down. Make sure your oil holes line up, which it looks like they do, and double check. Yep. And just keep putting the rest of them in. But a little history on this motor here. You know, in this truck actually, I'm a third owner of this truck, and it's got about, I don't know, 50,000 miles. It spent majority of its time on the same street in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was lucky enough to pick that up. And you know, it's cost me a little bit here, but it'll last a lifetime.